Hey everyone, welcome to Shimmer Girl Talks. Today's topic: former adult film star Jasmine Cashmere turns her life around and becomes a pastor. This is an opinion piece by Kevin Bell. I got this off of MSN.com. One thing about the topic of promiscuity and being a corn star, I said corn, is it tends to get modern women triggered. And that tells me that a lot of modern women have lived dubious lifestyles. I'm going to have my opinion. So if that triggers you, my suggestion is to go elsewhere. As I've said on my channel before, I am not a pro single mother channel. I am not a pro modern woman channel, but I do just have opinions. So let me read a little bit of this article and then I'll go into my opinion. The woman who filmed over 100 adult scenes now preaches the gospel after accepting the Lord and getting married. Jasmine Cashmere is a former adult film actress who appeared in more than 100 hardcore scenes during her career from 2004 to 2010. However, she has completely transformed her life, and I'll leave it at that. Now, for me, could I knowingly sit under a pastor? First of all, I would not sit under a female pastor. That's just my opinion. Now, I have sat under pastors' wives who, might have been giving a sermon to the women of the church. That's different. But I would not go sit under a female pastor's leadership. And I would not knowingly go sit under one who has lived such an outrageous lifestyle. Nobody on this earth is perfect. This is not coming from a place of, well, none of the pastors you sit under are perfect. It's going to be some modern bimbo that's going to be triggered by my opinion. Nobody is perfect. I get that. And these bimbos love to say everybody has a past. Not everybody has a past. Maybe you and your mama, but not everybody. So I would not go and sit under this pastor knowing what she used to do. Now, Jesus absolutely forgives and forgets. But for me as a human being looking on, what can she possibly tell me? That's just my opinion. I feel like her sermons would be limited, because then she would end up going into hypocrisy mode. How can you preach against promiscuity if that was, part of your lifestyle? That's just an example. And another thing that I have said about these women who live dubious lifestyles, and I realize a corn star and just your typical modern woman might not necessarily be the same. But you have modern women out here who have had multiple upon multiple men in their bed. So the line is not blurred. They're very similar. But I have said on my channel before that lifestyle has an expiration date. And a lot of times you will find women after living this type of lifestyle eventually wanting a man to settle them down and make an honest woman of them. Now, I'm not going to call her husband a simp or, whatever. I don't know what his, relationship to God is. But I have an opinion. Trust and believe. I do have an opinion about a man that will marry such a woman. But again, God is in the business of forgiving. God knows the heart. We're supposed to forgive too. Yes, we're supposed to forgive too. But I don't have to go and sit at her church. And I never would. Just like I would never go sit under a homosexual minister. I wouldn't. Or a pastor that that has admitted to being an adulterer, you know. But so I wanted to read at least 2 scriptures because I know, like I said, it's going to be some people that's going to be triggered. I don't care, but you know, it's my platform, my opinion. So John 8:7, King James Version. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, he that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Again, as I said, everybody on this earth has fallen short of what God expects us to be. But for me, sin is sin to God. Humans are the ones who differentiate between the sins. You know, like some people might say that deleting somebody is not the same as promiscuity, you know, lying is not the same as fornication, whatever. So God looks at the heart. I realize that. Now, I also wanted to talk about righteous judgment, because you have some of these women that get on their platforms. Only God can judge me. You so judgmental. Everybody judges. Even the ones of you calling somebody else judgmental, everybody judges. Somebody just called me judgmental in a post that I did on a woman with 3 kids by 3 different men. I didn't even say nothing back to her, but apparently she was triggered because she's that woman. John 7:24, Jesus instructs, judge not according to their appearance, but judge righteous judgment. This verse teaches that judgment should not be based on superficial or external factors, such as wealth, status, or outward behavior, but rather on truth, fairness, and moral integrity. So, for me, you know what? This was what I was going to say when I was, thinking about doing this video. Juanita Bynum, if you all remember her, No More Sheets. I remember reading that 20 plus years ago. And as I was reading it, I noticed that it did not apply to me because I was not a woman in the streets like that. So to me, the types of people who would sit under this Jasmine Cashmere type of woman could be people who have lived such a lifestyle. She could probably reach them. I don't see a woman that's been in the church all her life, who's guarded her body, etc., etc. I don't see a woman like that sitting under her. Because again, I simply would not and could not. So what say you? If you are a Christian, I'm directing this at Christians. Could you sit under a former corn star as a pastoral leader? And I'll talk to you later.